Morning. Good morning.
Where is everything? There we go. Let me see. Luis, you're very blurred. You, Jose, sorry, you're very blurred. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Just 1 second. I am set up in a very poor way. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for your time.
No worries. Um, 1 second so that the world can hear me.
Yes.
Let me pop up. I'm running from appointment to appointment today. My apologies. I actually would have wanted to have this document up
Yeah,
before we start talking. 1 second. There we
I
go.
understand because I think this is the International Week, right?
And
Today.
it's everything at this point in time for everyone. So something is always off. Let me see whether that is the file. There we go. I'm going to share my screen in 1 second,
Okay.
and then I'll talk for a minute or two, nothing much. Um, and then let me see, does that work or does that make a really small screen on your, let me see.
It's okay. It works for me.
Okay, so you know what this is, basically. It's what you submitted.
Yeah, it's the one pager. Yeah.
Exactly. And let me show you one or two things where that were really confusing. Yeah. So I'm not saying at all, and no one said this is a bad idea. But where we got extremely confused is some of the communication. And let me show you one example. So you got your value proposition here. We provide transparency of ingredients for the customers for each menu so they can avoid cross-contamination and be aware, blah, 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 blah. So the value proposition that you formulate
Mm-hmm.
is for customers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
go to customer market, restaurants and caterer food services. So
Mm.
I understand in essence what you're doing, but the communication you've set up, sort of if just someone reads this as a third person, you're basically having a value proposition that is not for your customers, and your customers have no value proposition as this document is written at this point in time. So the clarity, and sort of how does this get delivered, who pays, blah 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 blah, in just the document that you've submitted to us, that can be sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels clearer. And at the end, we sort of tried and make up the okay, who is actually, and it's some sort of, you say something that you talk to restaurants at this point in time. Yeah? So who is actually paying for this? How does this actually operate in reality? How you're going to scale up and so on and so forth is extremely hard to extract from the documents that you've submitted. So our confusion is largely from the communication and the uncertainty it creates about what it is really that you want to do. The shortest version of this is we think you rushed the submission. Yeah, not in the sense of that this is a bad idea, but they didn't have much time to write it down properly. And our hope is that you will now tell me super clearly, this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we're going to be delivering it. This is the person it creates value for. This is how we're going to extract some of this value. Yeah, this is, I don't know how they're paying it, why they're paying for it. And I'm going to be saying, Jose, this is a fantastic idea. Thank you very much. Going to send an email and then you'll get a yes immediately afterwards. Yeah. So in short, we don't know what it is you're really doing, who you really think you're creating value for, who you really think is going to pay for this and why. And if you can give me a sort of short, clear, transparent, like 5 sentence explanation, I'm going to say, stop, fantastic, let's do something else with today. Otherwise, we might need a couple of minutes more.
Yeah. Okay.
Roughly clear?
Yeah. First of all, I mean, I was not rushed because, as I told you, that we did this project from last year,
Yeah.
2021. Even we won one of the prizes from the EIT Food.
And we didn't know what you won the prize for. We don't know whether this is you got nice technology, you got a nice idea, you got a nice business, and so on and so forth. All we have is a certificate. Yeah, and we don't know what you got the certificate for. We couldn't find out in bit, like, I don't know, half a day to do the evaluation for not just you. So we weren't sure what precisely that award was for, what it was awarding. It could have even been that, I don't know, you have an AI algorithm in the middle office
Yes.
or whatever. So we don't know. We just didn't know.
Yeah, as you can see in the part of the value, I mean, we have the algorithm, which is the matching. The machine learning can match the menus from restaurants from the food profile for customers. So we can offer what they can eat, what they cannot eat, and what things they need substitution. That's very simple. And for the, I mean, maybe my mistake was maybe to address about the in a wrong way, maybe as you read, maybe for the customers, because of course, I mean, this is more about B2B. The value will be
Hmm.
more for catering services, the restaurant owners, right?
Hmm.
So basically, the value we want to propose is for them, so they can try to provide the safety food for their customers.
So what's your ideal? What's your perfect? What would be your dream setting? Yeah, so the way you say this is the number one use case that you can think of. That's the first field test where you're going to be going to see whether this works.
Yeah, for example, in a catering service, like for example, they have 100 event people,
Hmm.
and instead of they asking one by one, they will have they send the app to them, and they will fill the food profile.
Hmm.
And after they fill what they can eat, they cannot eat, the machine learning will set up the personalized menu for each of them according to the restrictions. That,
And the restaurants or the catering service and whatever else will have somehow fed the algorithm with this is our menu, that the things that we standard offer, and then sort of will pick something or it will make suggestions. Is that sort of
they will
the
have
outcome?
of course in the beginning they have a menu, right?
Hmm.
But if the customer have a restriction, they will need to change the menu according to the full restriction. So they can create even a personalized menu. Maybe
Okay.
not, not I mean, of course not the 100 people, but we can suggest some ingredients they can replace, so they
Okay.
can make it even better for the customer.
Okay, so it's not so the so that would have been sort of my follow-up question because in the restaurant setting, sort of if I go to a restaurant in essence, like literally, I would come to your restaurant, I look at the menu and I say I have this and this allergy. It's really hard to imagine how the chef or the I don't know the waiter or the waitress would sort of hack into the app and see okay what are the other things that I could cook. They would just come up with something. But on the
Uh,
catering event, like hundreds and thousands of people, I am with you. I see the value of this.
Okay, actually, if you read my proposal, it's more about the catering services. The restaurant is part of. My main customer is catering services. The restaurant
Mhm.
is part of the service. But actually, if you want to go to a restaurant, you should be able to fill a form and send a message in advance. I mean, not when you arrive to the restaurant. Of course, it's natural, right? But we propose that a service in advance before to arrive to a restaurant. Because
Ah,
we need
no,
we
I
need
understand. I'm starting to understand. So in essence, our conversation fills out the gap. That's sort of the B2B for restaurants slash catering service slash hotels. It doesn't suggest a prioritization. So again, we were confused about what is your preferred application, how does it really work, and so on and so forth. And we were all clear it's going to work relatively differently for restaurants and for catering services. And we were also not sure whether restaurants is actually your preferred application, where were thinking it makes a lot less sense because very often you have, let me rephrase, the likelihood that you have advance warning is much higher in hotels and is much higher in catering services. Because many restaurant decisions are just, okay, which restaurant do I pick? Yeah, I'm literally out on the street and I go, which of course you can also reserve and pre-register, whatever.
Yes, I
Uh,
understand. I understand your point because we showed this also in the EIT food. That's why I mean the first pilot test will be in the catering services, but
mhm.
eventually they will jump to the restaurant because they will ask for the service to the restaurant to prepare and to change the
No, no,
menus.
no, no. I'm with you. I'm with you. So the general idea again is fine. So what ideally you'd produce next, sort of to convince someone like us, is sort of we close our eyes and we think what's going to happen
Mhm.
when you go into the field. Yeah, and I'm basically um, I'm thinking Italian restaurant. Yeah, I'm thinking Italian restaurant.
Yep.
You go there and you tell the chef, I don't know. I don't, I'm not saying I'm allergic to this, but you would tell the chef, I don't like this kind of thing. But the chef would tell you, screw you, go to another restaurant. Yeah, they wouldn't say, okay, let me make you something else. They'd be like, this is my dish. Yeah, bugger off. Huh? So we were thinking the same sort of, I'm gluten intolerant, I'm blah blah blah, I'm blah blah blah, I'm blah blah. Then the chef might also just say, why did you come to my restaurant? And sort of, this is the dish that I'm famous for. That may actually, like, this criticism doesn't work in upscale restaurants, blah blah blah. Completely aware. Then there's a question about market size. Having said that, if you showed me we've talked to, I don't know, this and this and this chef, they confirmed this is really a problem that they're having, or this is something they'd be willing to pay for. Yeah, like a short interview quote. Or if you're saying, like, look, we went to a catering service and they confirmed this is really a problem or whatever else, all of a sudden we're all like, yep, he went out in the field and he tested this and whatever. And so from your email, I got 3 lead customers, and I already thought, okay, we might not have needed that conversation. But again, that was really, really, really hard to find in your proposal where you are at that stage. No, sort of it was just not clear, because you're saying in order you want to build a real app in order to find at least 3 pilot customers. Now, sort of you can actually do quite a lot of these things already without the app, because the app would test, does it work, does it not work? But you can test without the app. Would you be interested in this at all? Would you not be interested in this at all? You might not ask it like this. You might ask, like, is this problem realistic? Is this something you would struggle with? And you would talk to, I don't know, 10 chefs or 5 restaurants or 3 catering services. And we
Yeah.
weren't sure whether you had done that. Yeah, whether you were basically asking for, let's take 50,000 in software development and then start asking a couple of people, which would not be smart, because you can basically ask a couple of questions to see, hey, does it make sense to invest 50,000 in software development?
Yeah.
So I'm summarizing my thoughts so far, and then you say whatever you want.
Yeah.
You've actually talked to people. You understand how the different customers have different profiles and how it may be advantageous for some things to be at restaurants and for some things to be at caterers, and you're basically exploring the two at this point in time. Those 2 things are roughly correct, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, just to emphasize about this point, like, if I mean, we did some interviews to some restaurants and catering services, and we have the data also. I can send you also if you want.
No, it's all fine.
But
It wasn't clear that you had done it. That
yeah,
was
yeah,
sort of our,
yeah.
did you do any of this?
Yeah. I mean, just because we feel confident that the problem is still in the market, and we want to fill this gap, which is, as you said, people go to a restaurant, and I mean, they cannot find the menu for them, so they don't find valid food
Yeah.
options, and of course there will be some restaurants that will say, okay, I don't want to change and just go to the next restaurant, of course. But what if those restaurants can get more revenue if they can change their
Yeah.
menu, some ingredients, and some people, I mean they will get new customers. It's a new niche market, which
No, I
actually,
completely understand. I completely understand.
yeah.
I see 4 additional ideas. I'm not saying they're better than yours. I'm just saying there's 4 ideas which I'm sure you've already had. But I just want to reiterate them because they were also sort of apparent to us. Yeah, sort of the
Yeah.
first one is, of course, you could become a food consultant. Yeah, you could help restaurants set up menus that would sort of minimize allergies and whatever else, because you might have better choices. Yeah, and then they could open up like an allergy-friendly restaurant.
uh,
Is that
uh,
a big market? I don't think so.
and let me tell you something else. Like, recently also we talked with some guy in Bolzano, Italy, which is, his
Hmm.
name is Hannes Losch. Maybe you know him. Hannes Losch is doing now with some digital menus. So
Okay.
actually they have the menus already digitalized from the
Mhm.
restaurants. So even this is save us time for our app, and we want to merge with them also to work together. Like,
Interesting.
they want to personalize those menus. They only digitalize, but they didn't.
Personalized menu is the second option. Absolutely. Yeah, sort of
Yeah,
in
that's
particular for like specialized restaurants or something like this. Absolutely.
exactly. There is a niche market, but there is not
Yes.
developed because there is no valid options. I mean,
Yeah. No, in particular for those, and those exist, like those restaurants that are basically have living room size. Yeah, that you could, but it could go 2 ways. It's not just like here, chef is a menu that you could cook. That is actually my third idea. You could actually also provide aggregation services on what you can order. Yeah, I'm not saying this is the best way to go, but think about being a plugin to what's it called, Lieferando, or those sort of things. Yeah, sort of that or Just Eat, all those platforms. Yeah, that I'm ordering food very simply at home.
Mhm.
But I want to order something that I'm not allergic to, and sort of yes, there's allergy information, whatever else, but I have no intent sort of to crawl through all of the different websites and see whatever else. Yeah, so there may be I'm not sure whether they have that feature already. That when you go for these food order services, that you can specify you're allergic to this, you're allergic to that, you're allergic to that.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea. And
But
that
if you
that
combine that with food preferences, yeah, then it becomes to the end consumer a, hey, what would you like to eat today? And it would be this. And that, by the way, could even be a plug-in to things like pretty much anything. Yeah, the Thermomix, you know, the Thermomix, sort of
yeah, I
this
know it. Yeah.
throwback thing. They have they changed their complete outline to not a how do you cook something, but what do I want to eat today? And again, I don't know whether that tool has this feature of like what ingredients am I allowed to use and so on and so forth. I don't know whether it works with this, but in general, I can imagine a lot of situations where it's completely in the customer's choice what to do rather than have somebody else react. So they would go to a different place or they would do something differently or whatever else. It's a very different market. It would be much smaller margins, but potentially larger numbers. While you're speculating on some fewer numbers with potentially higher margins is my expectation. In essence, all I'm asking, or all I was asking for, that would have been my third question, but it seems you're doing this as well, is are you testing this? How are you testing this? Where are you testing this? And what are you finding out? And you are. So it's probably that you sent us a proposal that is, I don't know, half a year older than where you are at this point in time, or maybe even older than that, which is fine, which is good. What are your next steps? What are you going to be doing next?
Find a pilot test.
Is that the one in Peru?
No, no, we are trying to do it in Bolzano, Italy.
So that is the pilot test. All right.
Yeah,
And what precisely are you testing?
we
So
are
go
we are
ahead.
we are trying to test the timing and also the failure rate. I mean, if really we can change the menus for
Mhm.
people and they can also,
So it's a functionality test.
functionality test. Yeah, more. Yeah, in simple words, it's functionality test. Yeah.
Okay. And market test, sort of figuring out sort of what the different applications are and how where customers can be the end consumer, of course, and the restaurant. What's your plan of figuring out what your favorite market is, in essence?
For market test, we didn't still went there. The only thing market test we did is a survey, which is
Hmm.
the we asked 10 companies between Germany and between also in Italy. So there are 10 companies we asked if they need it or not, and we they have something else similar. Some of them around six to seven they asked they need it because they think it's a good idea. Yeah, so for the market test, I think we can go forward later on. If we can do pilot tests and we can replicate it, we can start to
Yeah.
approach more.
So I think one of the things you will need to test for, I think, at some point in time really is like which chefs are reacting how to this. Yeah, because in essence, if the machine learning makes the chef a suggestion of what to cook, I'm not sure which kind of chef is appreciative of this, because in essence, you have a machine that does their job to a large degree, the creativity part and whatever else. And some chefs may sort of actually even react negatively. While others may be really appreciative. And I think in the catering situation, I would expect a more positive reaction than in the like upscale restaurant
Yeah,
reaction. Yeah, they
right.
would be more just interesting in the flag somebody's allergic, and they'll think of, okay, what else can I do, rather than ask a machine for what else they can do. Now, but the end consumer, or I don't know, somebody else may be more interesting. So in essence, all I'm encouraging you is if you think about the value chain that you're imagining, yeah, what happens after what? Yeah, who does what, literally as activities? What are the assumptions that you are making behind each of those decisions? Yeah, so if you're saying we're going into a restaurant, so then one by one it would be you or I, we go into a restaurant. Are you assuming that I've pre-specified, pre-booked, and is that relevant? Don't know. Yeah. So you go into the restaurant and somehow the restaurant knows I'm allergic to a couple of things and it's not, or don't like a couple of things. It may even be that. Yeah. And the information has been passed on to the restaurant. And so what happens next is that I know the restaurant has a computer in the kitchen, so that somebody sees this, or is it in the office and the waiter has seen it, or whatever else? Or do you expect the chef to carry around a phone with them? And how do they do the matching between it's me that who arrived, and like that person at that table is the same person on the IT thing. But that probably is relatively easy to figure out. And then your next assumption is the chef somehow reacts positively in that moment and does it. Rather than just, and he or she needs this rather than making something up. Yeah. And again, in the catering situation, that value chain is different. In the hotel situation, that value chain is different. And you want to figure out in which of these steps you feel uncomfortable about the assumptions, or you just don't know. And those things somehow you will need to test. You need to figure out whether these things are happening, whether they're true, whether they're accurate, because those might be the things where so it's easiest to foresee that anticipated value chain, where in the end the customer ordering the food as well as the restaurant, whoever is paying for this, is happy. So you want to be a little more, in essence, explicit, or you're saying, okay, our first sort of steps are figuring out how this really works. And you would have one of you stand in the kitchen or stand in the restaurant and just observe them using your tool, and see what they're doing and how they're complaining or whatever else. That could also work. But it's a quintessential step, because I'm not sure at this time. And sort of it goes back to some of the initial things that I said. I'm not sure at this time about what you are assuming that people will do with this app, and what you actually sort of know from your own experience or from having been there, and what you've really tested, where you actually have evidence saying, if we do this, then this and this and this will happen. And that sort of comes back to where I started. That adds sort of to the confusion that I'm saying, okay, do you go restaurants, do you do catering, what do you know about them, what do you not know about them? So I'd encourage you to do market testing, in essence, in parallel. Not market testing in the sense of how much will they pay for this or whatever else, but what is actually the problem? How will they use it? As quickly as you can, and potentially integrate it with functional development. Because if there are some pathways that your app, sort of when done, can serve and not serve, it makes sense to have some information about which of these pathways is valuable before you've developed the entire app. Sort of that in essence, while developing some rudimentary functionality, you're trying to figure out which markets are potentially more lucrative, and then push app development towards this, where lucrative can be anything. People will be using this, they're paying a lot, or there's more customers or whatever. There's a lot of things to figure out. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, right, exactly. Basically, just to share a little bit about how it works in the kitchen is like usually for the restaurants we talk, and the catering service we talk, they have the chief on the kitchen, chief of the
So
kitchen.
you have been in the kitchen before with them.
Yes, and
That's
then
also not in the application.
no,
That is in the application.
no,
It
but
makes it so much more credible.
we need to double check. I mean, how they will take it, because as you said, some people take it good, some take it
Yeah.
bad. So for the ones who take it bad, we just say thanks. We just go to the ones who are really interested.
Yeah. No, it's perfectly fine. Again,
Yeah, that's
I'm only
pretty
going
fine.
back to the application text.
Yeah.
Much of your application reads like, and I'm exaggerating. Much
Right.
of your application text at this point in time reads like, we've got this idea, let's develop an app and see what happens.
Okay.
This is how much of your application read to us. We've got this idea. Ooh, let's develop this. This is really important, and we have to do this. Let's develop an app over a year's time, and then talk to a couple of people what happens. Now that I have the information that you've actually talked to people about, do you need this app? What would you need the app for? How would you likely be using it? That you've thought about all these things. So that your app development isn't just, let's develop something and see what happens, but hey, we know it could work like this, let's start like that and see what happens. That you've thought in essence about all the things, or most of the things that I'm suggesting. I'm going like, okay, Jose actually knows what he's doing. While quite a lot of the applications that we're getting are, and again, I'm exaggerating, we've got this really cool technology. Let's do a little more with that technology. Let's plow 50,000 euros into it, not think about what we could do with it at all. And then after we've spent the 50,000, let's do something else with it. While sort of the program here is much more about, okay, where are you developing this toward? Who are the customers? Why would they be needing this? What's the market? Blah, 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 blah. And in your case, it was even easier, in essence, for us to see that you could do this kind of development in advance. And there was very little information on it in the text. And now I've heard you've done all this. You've just not written it in here, which is fine. Yeah? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to write to the people from the Bridge to the Innovation program that we spoke, that I talked and talked and talked, and you were very kind and listened. But B, more importantly, that you thought about many of those things. Yeah, that you're capable of, perfectly capable of breaking up your customer segments into very different value propositions, potentially. That you're testing those things in parallel, that you have been in the field, and that you are considering developing the functional product in parallel to figuring out who would like which functions better and which of these functions work, so that you're capable of understanding this is not functional development first and market development afterwards, but it's understanding the market and producing functions in essence at the same time until you have some sort of match.
Thank
All
you so
right?
much. Thank you.
No
Thank you.
worries.
And remember to copy CC to Professor Luisa Menepashi
Yeah. We'll do
because
that. We'll do that.
she's
I'm
she's my
fairly sure she
advisor.
loves the idea.
Oh, you talk with her?
No, I haven't spoken to her. We're in the same school officially, but
Oh,
I know her a little bit, and I would expect she likes the idea.
she love it.
Um,
Yeah, she love it. Yeah.
no. So the sort of in essence, just make sure sort of in future communication, yeah, in this sort of thing. And the Bridge to Innovation doesn't really specify, and you don't know who's in the panel or whatever else. But even more, and I'm fairly sure you will go to, I don't know, Investor or whatever else at some point in time to communicate even more clearly in what are the things that they are expecting. Tick, we've done that. Yeah. And in our case, if I had known all the things you've told me about, that in essence, you have been in the field, you have a lead customer, you're co-developing, you're testing, blah, 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 I would have been super fantastic, wonderful. Give them the money, let's move on, next thing. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I'll do a couple of lines on this. And so there are two things you might take out of that conversation. I already said the one, more audience specific conversation. So less descriptive, here's what we're doing, but more, here's what you want to hear from us. Yeah? Sort of, these are all the fantastic things, not the description of what we're doing, but that we're going to be achieving, how we're testing, in essence, how we're ticking your boxes. Yeah? And the second, sort of this emphasis on parallel testing of assumptions as with functional development. Yeah? Your assumptions are mainly going to be on the market side, yeah, that somebody will like something or do something or whatever else. And you want to test this in small incremental steps, which I'm sure is exactly the same things you've heard in all these things you've done with the Unternehmertum, everything about sort of the lean startup or agile management or whatever else, are all the same things. It's about small incremental tests. And as long as you're doing those sort of things and have a couple of people that help you on the way, you should be fine. Thank you for taking the time, Jose.
Thank you so much, Professor
I'll send the
Alexi.
email immediately. I'll send the email immediately. And if there's sort of any problems, questions, whatever, you just get in touch with either myself or someone from the Bridge to Innovation program. Best of luck with the idea.
Thank you so much. Keep in
Take care.
touch. Bye bye.